Hello lovely ones, thanks so much for joining me and welcome to my little studio this week. Okay, so we're going to be painting this lovely reference photo, kindly shared by Carol Suto. Oh, what a joyful picture. For those of you that are free members on Patreon, I've popped a post there for you so you can go and download the reference photo and have a go. I do hope you do because it's an absolutely joyful walk. If you're watching this here on YouTube, pop on over to my Patreon. Sign up as a free member, doesn't cost you anything, and there's a post there where you can access the reference photo too. All right then. So I'm painting on pastel matte this week, using the lovely wine colour. First time for using this for me, but looking forward to giving it a go. So as always, the first thing I do is ask myself, what is it that I love about this photo? What do I want to capture? Well, for me, I love these gentle mix of these beautiful autumn colours. You've got the golds and the pinks, really so very, very pretty. And this is it for me. This is such a pretty scene, and I'm a sucker for a pretty scene. Loved it, how delicate it was. So really want to capture that. And I really also wanted to feel as if I was on a joyful, I was walking down that road and actually experiencing this joyful autumn walk. So I've got my doggies in hand and we're going off on a walkies. All right then, so I think without further ado, let's get painting. So, forgot to mention in the intro there that I chose to do a 9x12 on this one. Obviously, you can do whatever size you fancy, but I felt this would be a nice little size for this, and didn't want to go too large because I'm, kind of experimenting with the wine pastel matte. As I say, not that, I'm getting used to pastel matte now, but haven't tried any of the, haven't tried this colour before, and I kind of thought it would work really well with this painting. So, going to give it a go. Not quite sure how it's going to turn, how it turns out whilst I'm at this stage. We'll see. I'll just go by what I think will work, and we'll see how we get on. So obviously the first thing you saw there is as the picture came up, done myself a very loose charcoal sketch, just using a piece of vine charcoal, and as you can see, very scribbly, just giving myself an idea of where this, where all the trees and where I want my horizon line to be. As I mentioned in the intro, I've decided to lift that up a little bit, just a bit, just so that we've got a little bit more of a lead in to to take us round to those lovely trees that those lovely pinky colours that you can see sort of going round the corner. I really want to entice us up that road, and so having done that, as I say, the thing I love about this is I love how delicate it is, and I really want to at this stage I want some of that paper showing through, and that's my intent at this stage. I do end up covering up a lot of it, but you do still see peeking through in places, and it kind of just, when you've got a single a single color, like say for example a wine or a green or whatever color you choose as your background, unless you really render your pastels and absolutely cover all the paper, it does help tie a painting together, because you've kind of got that uniformity behind. And obviously, if you're working on sort of like a buffy neutral paper or a white paper, that sort of colour behind can be distracting, which is why I often do an underpainting. But here I can see these this sort of winey colour in this painting, in all that foliage and things like that. So as I say, I thought it would work really well. So cross fingers, we'll see how we get on. And as I said, but by using this colour paper, I'm not going to do an underpainting of any sorts, not wet, not dry. I'm going to try and blend as little as possible on this painting. I just like it to be layers and layers. As I said earlier, I love how delicate this is, such a pretty scene, and I'm a sucker for prettiness. So I really want to keep this nice and light. So I just want the sort of colours crisscrossing over each other. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm coming in with a dark blue, to sort of, get those trees in place and sort of, roughly where I put that charcoal, I'm squinting my eyes, looking at my reference photo and seeing where those sort of, patches of light and dark are. Starting off always as I do darker than I need in any, in the areas, because it's, you can always build up from there and it gives you that depth underneath it. If you've watched me before, you know that I love to paint in lots of, rather than sort of 2 or 3 layers, 1 or 2 layers or whatever. I like to paint in lots of layers, and especially with one like this where I want to keep it nice and delicate. So as I say, no underpainting on this, so we're just going straight through. And obviously, as I'm putting in my trees and things like that, whilst I'm going to go fairly close to the reference photo, it doesn't bother me if all the trees, aren't in exactly the right place or I haven't got exactly the right number. As long as I'm giving the impression that we're sort of going up this road and, going up and, having a look what's around the corner, to all those lovely colours and things. So as long as I've got that, as long as I've got a nice, a nice curve on my road, I might make the road a little curvier. It just depends how the painting goes. But as I say, not hugely fussed if everything's not in exactly the same place. And it's totally up to you. Obviously, if you want to make sure your trees are in exactly the same place and things, then, feel free and, take your time with this sketch. But as you saw from my sketch, very, very rough, very loose, and just an indication. And, by going around with the dark first, really, I'm just kind of establishing that. And so now I've kind of come up with the value scale a little bit, and I put in that sort of like lovely sort of bluey green, blue green. Next kind of value up, again squinting my eyes, seeing where it's dark but not as dark as those really deep dark bits which are under the trees and things. Everything at the bottom of those trees, especially to the left hand side, that's very dark, and in the centre of the road and things like that. So this is these now colours are kind of the next stage up. So all the areas where there's kind of green foliage and things, I put that as I say, that lovely sort of dark blue green there, and just sort of again squinting my eyes and having a look. And at the moment I've come in with a similar value, but this one's sort of like a burgundy, where we've got some of those reds and things. Obviously this is going to be a mixture of red, we've got a mixture of colours going on here, but I kind of want to give myself roughly the right right idea and make sure I stay on track, as to which are red trees, which are blue trees, green trees, and things like that. So, that's why I'm just sort of like with that sort of middle dark value. I'm using two colours to start me off, bluey for the green areas and sort of reddy for those, where we've got that lovely autumnal foliage there. And as you can see, I'm using my pastel on its side, in different directions and things, crossing over each other. As with I'm keeping things very loose at the moment, trying to hold off on detail till kind of later on. Just want to give myself kind of the gesture of everything, really, where those branches are coming out. And as you can see now, coming up the value scale again now, with this sort of lovely sort of tealy turquoise. I'm using a little bit, I'm going a little bit bluer to start with, and then I'll green up later on. But I kind of want the mix of those colours going on. So that's why I'm sort of starting more towards the blue side on these green areas. And then, later on, those greens will go on top of that. So as you can see, with this lovely tealy colour, it's such a lush colour, I'm starting to sort of pull out some of those branches to the left-hand side. Really enjoyed the gesture of those, that sort of, the big branches coming out. It's kind of pointing you towards that lovely backdrop there, isn't it? So I really like the gesture of those branches. So I want to give that feeling, as if we're kind of going to be going under this sort of canopy, really, as we go down the road there. So whilst, as I say, I'm not fussed if it's not exactly, the branches aren't exactly in the right place. As long as I've got the gesture and the feeling, that's really what I'm interested in. And at this stage, I'm using a mixture of sort of hard and softer pastels. Really, for me, I don't worry too much. I go more for the colour rather than whether it's hard or soft. Certainly in these early stages. But obviously, if you're putting down your softer pastels, they do lay down a lot more, a lot more pigment there. Fill up the tooth a lot quicker. So make sure your touch is really nice and light if you're using soft pastels here. And really, if you want to go for the kind of very, very delicate feel as I'm going to, your touches, we're going to be laying colour over colour over colour over colour. And so therefore your touch really needs to be nice and light. If that's the look you're going for. Obviously, if you want to go for more washes of colour, then you can be firmer with your touch and sort of, a lot, sort of mix your colours, blend your colours if you want to or whatever. But as I say, for me on this one, I want the delicate foliage. So I want everything crisscrossing over each other. And so now I'm coming with up the value scale a little bit on the sort of burgundy lilac-y side. Well, this is more of a violet really. Where things are starting to lighten up, but we've got those kind of, we're to the red end, not the green end, using that sort of colour just in a few places, the branches that are coming out from the tree on the right, and just sort of like behind where that sort of goldeny colour is at the back, going to give myself a little bit for something to play off. And now coming in with sort of a nice dark purple now for this road. Again, lovely rich colour. I'm going more vibrant than I'm going to need on the road at the moment, but I'd like that underneath. It's always much easier to calm things down if you want to, or you might go for a nice jolly happy scene. This for me painting it, it was an absolute joy to paint, and I felt as if I was on a joyful autumn walk. So that's what I wanted to create. So I'm going to keep quite vibrant on this one, and quite colourful. I'm obviously in the mood for colour. I was going to do a totally different scene of sort of like a quiet autumn morning where everything was kind of all dulled out. But when it came to it, I didn't feel in a dull mood. So you've got another colourful one from me. So hope you don't mind. I'm sure I'll come to a more subdued landscape at some point soon. Winter's obviously a good time to do that. So we'll tackle that soon. But for now, we're all joyful and happy with colours and just celebrating the season of autumn. So you're going to see me coming in with a few different colours, come up the value scale a little bit more, really just getting all of those main areas of colour sort of like in place. What's going to go underneath everything really to begin with. So my scene's pretty much set up there now. I've got my road and I've got the feeling of the trees already. Just staying in that sort of mid to dark value range with those. I don't want to go too light at the moment. And as I say, I really love this. I love the delicate feel of all that foliage at the top of those trees. Really, really beautiful. So I really want to try and create a lacy effect up there. And as you can see, my touch is ever so light up in the sky now. Want to get a little bit of the sky behind, behind what's going on. So I haven't got any sort of hard, clumpy areas of sky. So I can try and sort of lace that foliage over the top of it. But as I say, on this paper, this lends itself really well because as you can see, where I'm putting the pastel down, you're seeing the sort of grain of the pinky paper coming through. Now my touch really is very, very light when I'm doing this sort of scene, especially up in the trees and things. As I say, don't want any sort of dark clumps up there. So I started off with a little bit of sort of ultraviolet blue. I love that. It's got a vibrancy, that sky behind there. The colours of the foliage is sort of, so it's all reflecting off of each other, and you've got that kind of violety look up there. So I started off at the top, and more to the tops of the area, and as you can see, just sort of like looked at those shapes again, squinting my eyes to see where the main areas of sky are, and started off with the ultraviolet, then came up the value scale a little bit, just again came down the painting, really, as I say, squinting my eyes and seeing where those sort of patches of light are. And what I want to do is I want to put the sky colour down into the road here now. And so I've got a little bit of purple in there, a little bit of that ultraviolet from the sky, and sort of in the centre of the road. It's quite dark there, isn't it? Where obviously it's we've had a little bit of rain and there's a sheen on the road there. So I might just blend that area, but other than that, everything else I'm really trying not to blend, trying to get this sort of crisscross going on. So sky is kind of in place. Again, not to its finished detail, just keeping things really, really light at the moment, keeping that light touch. So now I'm going to put let's get a little bit of autumnal oranges and corals going on and things like that. So using a little bit lighter value than I've been using, because obviously that foliage is lighter than the greens. Using like a lovely sort of mid-tone orange there. And again, I'm now looking at sort of like where all those sort of yellowy golden areas are. Anywhere where there's that sort of, the trees have turned, or they're starting to turn. So as you can see, quite quickly, the scene is coming together. Already got a feeling of the road, feeling of those main areas. And that's what I always do first. You go for those big main areas, what you can see first, sort of the biggest area of colour or light and shade that you can see, and get that in first. Get a couple of colours going on in any one area, so you've got that lovely play going on underneath. And now what I'm going to do is, now I'm kind of coming into some secondary areas. That's kind of set me up, and I think, yep, okay, pretty much everything is roughly where I want it to be. And now I want to get in, sort of the secondary, take a break, come back, and then you start to see more. So obviously, I can see that light, little gaps in the trees and things over to the left-hand side. So I want to get a bit of sky going on behind there. And with the sky, I will be coming backwards and forwards between the sky and the foliage. Sometimes I do all the foliage together, but as I say, we want to get this nice lacy kind of feel. So you're going to see me going backwards and forwards between the sky and the foliage. But what I will say to you is really, really, if you want to do it in this fashion, you really will need to have your touch very, very light. So as you can see, you know, when I put those pastels across up in the sky, I can still see some things going on underneath. And that's what I want to do, you know, sort of create these layers of light going on. So in order to do that, if your hand is a bit heavy, what you'll end up doing when you're kind of mixing blues and greens and oranges and things together, you could well end up with mud. And obviously we want this to feel really nice and fresh. So really do practice getting a light touch. If you're painting with me, that's one of the things, you know, you're really going to develop in order to get some of the effects that hopefully I get. So, you know, in general, you know, sometimes I'm heavier handed, but very, I'm usually my firmer marks, when I'm harder with the pastel, with my pressure and things, it's always towards the end of the painting. At this stage, layer over layer and a really, really light touch. Now, also at this stage of the painting, on something like this, I don't wear my glasses because I want to keep it loose. I don't want to get caught up in detail. And I know if I get my glasses on and I can, zoom in on my tablet and things, I can get, very carried away, as I did with my, as I'm doing with the jewel one. That one really is sort of, very, very detailed. But I do want this one to be, to be a little bit looser. So consequently, I haven't got my glasses on. And so I picked up a pastel, which I thought was very dark brown, and it's actually turned out to be black, which, as you can see, I'm using for my trees there. Now, I go on for quite some time picking a couple of different colours, which I think are dark brown, and in fact they are black, just different pastels. So this is something I will say to you, although those sort of tree trunks and things, they are very dark, you'll find me going back later on in the painting, lightening those up. Black is a very, very, very difficult colour to, well, I find it quite a challenging colour to use. It's not a colour, is it? And it can so often deaden a painting. However beautiful the painting is, it kind of like sucks it out somehow. So I'm always very, very careful on using black. Obviously using it in my autumn fruits at the moment and things, but that's literally because I do want jet black. But those sort of tree trunks and things, they're not black, they've got colour in them, the black just looks that little bit too strong, a little bit too hard. So as I say, take heed from my mistake on this one. Don't, if you're picking your colours, it might be an idea to put your glasses on, but don't, I wouldn't, whilst you see me going in with black, I would suggest going in with a dark brown or a dark blue or something to get those tree trunks kind of in their place. And as you can see at the moment, just coming in, one of those tree trunks kind of went awry a little bit, and because it's really dark value, I'd just like to lift a little bit of that out. So came in with a dry paintbrush, and as you saw, just lifted a little bit out. Some of it's still there, but I know that I can cover that quite easily, so that that won't be a problem. But I always like to kind of lift it, if I see something that's really wrong, I'll lift it out straight away. I want to make sure that I keep as much of that tooth going as possible. So now kind of working to the right-hand side of the painting, bringing some of that sky colour down into the foliage and literally, going backwards and forwards, gently with the lightest of touches, just adding a little bit more colour in places, and getting the shapes a little bit more how I want them and getting a little bit closer to how I feel. But still staying with these main colours at the moment, and then we'll start lightening things up and darkening certain areas down, Okay then, so I'll let you watch this bit for a little while and I'll see you in a mo. So for the time being, I'm pretty happy with the sort of balance of the foliage and the sky and things. It's coming together really quite nicely. They're starting to feel a little bit more like trees, starting to feel like a little bit more like trees overhanging, those branches coming in from the left there. And in general, a little bit closer. Now here you just see me coming in with my finger there. And this is really, as I say, keeping blending to an absolute minimum on this. And the only place I really want to do it is in that road so that we can build up that glossy look. Now you saw me earlier, came in with some eggplant colour there for those darkest areas on the road, where you've got that sheen of the road, and also sort of like under the foliage to the sides, you've got good, rich darks there, and then the foliage is kind of leaning over, but you've got the darks where you've got all the branches and everything's bunched up at the bottom. So getting in the darks first. And I want to sort of like obviously get some burgundies going on there, to the foliage that's sort of like not to the foliage, to the leaves that are kind of to the right hand side. You've got some gorgeous greens, burgundies, oranges in there and things. So I want to get that. And this foreground I want to keep fairly subtle with regard to the leaves, because I want to, I want that sort of where you see that bright patch as you go around the corner. That I want us to lead us through the painting. So this is going to be more subdued to the front here. So I'm using a mixture of sort of more muted colours, really. Not using anything too bright in this foreground. And you saw me sort of like come into the centre, having a look at where the light's hitting that road, using some of my sky colour in there as well. Really just trying to kind of shape this area a little bit more, get it feeling a little bit more road-like, get the foliage to the side feeling a little bit better. As I say, been working mainly up in the sort of tree and things, so now I want to work on this lower half of the painting, try and balance it up a little bit more and get more of that it's the feeling it is a little road, little country lane we're going down. All right then, so as I say, I'll be working with darks, more muted colours to the front there. But I do hop around the painting, as you can see now. I'm saying I'm working on the road. Obviously, I've worked enough on the road, and I've decided I want to put some nice, jolly, happy colours up in the foliage. I mean, this is it. I do what I see. So I appreciate sometimes it's difficult for you to follow, but I suggest you do what you see. As you see it, and you build it up how you want. As long as you work from the premise of mainly dark to light. Keep your touch nice and light, if you're mixing warm and cool colours, definitely keep your touch light, you just do what you see. I really suggest that. Unless, of course, obviously you're a person that's a little bit more methodical and you like to be a little bit more meticulous and things. There are plenty of artists out there that, literally work from one corner. They get a corner complete or a section of the painting complete, and then they go on to the next section and bring that up. And there's no right or wrong, it really is a personal choice. But for me, I love the painting to come together as a whole. So now coming in and sort of re-establishing some of those trees. Now at this stage I do have my glasses on. However, for getting where the trees were, for making sure that they were in the right place. However, I still didn't use them to look at my colours. So I'm still messing around with black at the moment. Getting some of that in. As I say, come back and lighten that up. And if you can, you do want a really nice dark value. So go for as dark as you can. But as I said earlier, I try and avoid black if you can. can. I am successful in sort of like lifting the colour up later, of these trees. However, it meant I did work I didn't really need to do. But anyway, so do learn from my mistakes. As I say, every painting is new, so I make mistakes, with all of these. I'm not showing you something that I've painted 100 times before. Every painting's fresh. So, as I always say, you kind of see it warts and all, and I don't necessarily get it right every time, but I want you to see the reality of things. So basically now, as I say, coming in with that dark value now and just getting a few more, establishing those tree trunks and getting a few of these little branches in. Now, as you can see, I'm sort of looking at my reference to see kind of the direction of those branches, how they're formed, how they're growing, what gesture they creating. And sometimes you'll see me, as you see me there now with the pastel on its side. That's quite a wider branch. So some of the branches I'm trying to make wider. I'm trying to make sure that I haven't got, everything sort of too lined up, that my brain hasn't wanted to uniform everything, because obviously all those branches, they're all growing from a central point, obviously the tree trunk, but they're coming out at all sorts of angles, all sorts of shapes, so you can afford to be a little bit creative here. Your branches can come out, wherever you want them to come out. But bear in mind, obviously, where your foliage is. Bear in mind how the structure of a tree. Remember, as you're putting your marks down, you can be loose, you can be free, but just remember sort of how things grow. Really, winter coming up, and we'll do a study on this later in the year. We'll do a study on trees. I want to take you through sort of like the bare bones of them. Next month we're going to be seeing the skeletons of the trees. And if you do a couple of skeleton drawings, it really is going to help you when you come down to putting these branches down, so that you can kind of get a realistic feel and it doesn't feel too uniformed. Everything feels lovely and natural. That's what we're going for. We want to get we want those branches to feel realistic. And so, sometimes I'll twist my pastel. Sometimes, I'll put it down in one stroke. Other times I'll, the wider trunks there, I'll sometimes go sideways up them to create that width. And obviously, as with everything, I'll go back and revisit it. But I want to get those main trees in place again, re-establish those, and then I'll be coming back in and going over with another round of foliage and things. But I'll let you watch some of these more branches come together, and I'll pop the music on, and I'll see you in a mo. So as you can see, been going backwards and forwards between the branches and the foliage and things. And, you see me putting a little bit of tree down, then you'll see me pulling the foliage across it. And right now, that's what I'm wanting to do, break it up, because some of the foliage is in front of those trees, some of it's behind and things. So that's really what I'm doing, is sort of like putting those colours down, and like now coming in with some, I'm going to be coming up the value scale a little bit more now and getting some more gesture going on. And as I say, pulling some of that colour across those tree trunks that I've put in, softening it down, pushing them into the distance. Remember, as things go further away from us, we get less and less detailed, more out of focus. So you want little, sort of small marks back there. You don't, or sweeps. So as you can see, where it sort of catches the paper, you leave those other colours. Again, with your touch, when your touch is really, really light, you can see those other colours going there. So you're building it up, and you can see things going on underneath it, which is how you're seeing it in nature. You're never seeing one solid colour, are you? You're always seeing, a multitude of colours in any one area. And so, as you can see, layer upon layer of lovely, lovely, lovely gentle colours. Super, super light touch on this one. And obviously this is how far I took my painting. We're all different. You take yours as far as you want to and do as much as, you know, what's filling you with joy. As long as it fills you with joy or happiness or a beautiful feeling as you're doing it, then you've done your job. You've enjoyed it. And whether it's turned out to be a good painting or not, hey, who cares? You've just enjoyed working with these beautiful pigments, the colours of this world. And, for me, what a joy it is. Okay then, so I do hope you've enjoyed this video. As I say, please do give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel or come and join us over on Patreon. It'd be so lovely to see you. Thank you so much. I wish you a lovely few days and happy painting.